Hi everybody, welcome to the Scales podcast. My name is Tom Ryder. I'm the founder of Tom Ryder Wellbeing and a wellbeing coach. And in this podcast, we're going to be delving deep into the Scales model and how it can help you live a happier and healthier life. I hope I can make the audience feel energized, inspired, and excited to live their life by scales and find a way through trying circumstances by using that methodology. But we're going to have guests on to talk about what their sleep is like, what they do creatively, what they do to stay active, how they listen to their body, how they earth themselves, and how they stay social. So we're going to have plenty of guests on the podcast that are going to talk about these different aspects, these different strings that they need to keep in tune in order to feel in harmony and to feel balanced as well. You should come and listen to this podcast because it's going to be quite easy listening. We're bound to go a little bit deep in terms of some of the topics around well-being, but really it should be good fun and hopefully provoke some good conversation and some ideas about how you can live the Scales model in your own life and how that relates to your own well-being. So people listening to this podcast and tuning in can really benefit from the Scales model and knowing how to live that and knowing how that looks like for them, because it's a very individual set of strategies and tools that can be, each person's going to apply them in their own way. So everybody has their own things they do to look after their sleep, to look after their creativity and so on. So it should provoke some good discussion and get you thinking about how you can implement this in your own life and just feel happier and feel better as a result of using these techniques. There's also a lot of podcasts out there run by, I think, people more in that life coaching space or that kind of empowerment and betterment space. So I think with this, we're going to be a little bit more gentle, hinging on positive well-being rather than having you feel overwhelmed and that there's so many different strands and messages to take. Really, what we're doing with Scales is it's 6 simple messages that can be implemented. It's very memorable. It's very applicable day to day. So it feels accessible for our listeners. So in terms of guests for the podcast, we'll be going for kind of a range of personalities. Really, there's such a wide spread of people that will have interesting things to say around Scales and around well-being. So the obvious answer is we're going to speak to a lot of creative people, might be musicians, stand-up comedians, poets, artists, bakers. That's really kind of underpins what we do as being a very kind of creative organization. We'll probably speak to some elite sports athletes as well. We might speak to some yoga instructors or people that do Pilates when we're thinking about our earth string, and also some leaders in business. But really, it's not about necessarily how many followers these people have or how big an audience we might be able to reach as a result of this. Really, we're just looking for interesting stories and fascinating people to share their experiences. I'd like to bring people into our Scales podcast to really educate them, to get them thinking about how Scales can be applied to their own life and allow them to realize that it's a very accessible tool that can be applied to anybody's life really and used to live more harmoniously and more in balance. So I'm kind of motivated by I think we're going to have some amazing guests and some really interesting chats, but also once we put it out to our community and have the listeners feedback and share their own stories, I think that's going to be kind of a powerful group that we're creating. I think the questions we'll be asking on the podcast will follow a certain theme. In many ways, the nature of Scales as a 6-string theory and a 6-string set of tools and strategies, it kind of really tailors itself to a podcast situation. So a 30 to 40 minute episode where we might perhaps focus 5 minutes per string gives us a clear structure to work from. And it also allows the guests to know what to expect. And I think when a guest comes in, having a sense of what it's going to be like and the themes we're going to discuss, they'll be able to prepare in detail. And I think we're going to be able to share some really interesting stories and really go quite in depth with people, which I think should really resonate. In terms of me hosting this podcast, I'm really coming to this with a lot of lived experience in mental health and well-being. So I have a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. I struggle with OCD, depression, and anxiety. I've been sectioned 3 times. I've been hospitalized multiple times for my mental health. And so this doesn't make me an expert necessarily, but it does allow me to really connect with people on these topics and allow them to feel comfortable in opening up in their own way. So yeah, what I'm really looking to do with this podcast is bring my authenticity, bring a real personal touch to these issues, and allow people to explore their own well-being in a very open and honest way. So in terms of who will listen to this podcast, it is kind of for everybody, but the types of people that we tend to work with at Tom Ryder Wellbeing are really people for whom counselling and therapy have not necessarily worked. Maybe they've struggled to connect with their counsellor or therapist. Maybe they've been through a number of different people over a number of years. What we're really looking at is coaching, which is a different concept. It's kind of a lot more practical and a lot more tailored to you, solution focused. So I'm hoping that this podcast is going to appeal to people who feel a little bit lost, or a little bit stuck, or as though these other types of therapy have not worked so well for them. So this could be another more, hopefully more effective solution.